They popped champagne and toasted to my promotion, then gave it to someone who joined the company last month. My name is Mira Desai, and I clapped, smiled, and raised my glass while silently planning the move that would destroy everything they built. The conference room was decorated with balloons. Congratulations! Banners hung from the ceiling. My colleagues filled the space, talking and laughing. I'd walked in thinking this was finally my moment. 6 years of late nights, sacrificed weekends, and carrying projects nobody else wanted to touch. Then Martin Cruz, our division director, clinked his glass for attention. Everyone, thank you for being here to celebrate an exciting announcement. We've decided to promote someone whose fresh perspective and innovative energy have impressed us all. My heart pounded with anticipation. Please congratulate our new Senior Director of Strategy, Ivy Monroe. The room erupted in applause. Ivy, 27 years old, hired 5 weeks ago, stepped forward with a brilliant smile. She'd literally been my mentee. I trained her myself. I felt my face freeze. My hands moved mechanically, clapping along with everyone else. Nobody looked at me. Nobody seemed to notice this party had my name on the invitation that morning. I raised my glass when others did, smiled when Ivy glanced my way, and began calculating my exit. Mira, isn't this exciting? Ivy gushed, approaching me after the announcement. Her eyes were genuine. She probably had no idea this promotion had been promised to me 3 months ago. So exciting, I replied, my voice steady. Congratulations, Ivy. You've worked so hard. 5 weeks. She'd worked 5 weeks. Martin appeared beside us. Mira, I hope you'll continue supporting Ivy as she transitions into leadership. Your institutional knowledge will be invaluable. Of course, I said smoothly. Whatever the team needs. He patted my shoulder. That's the spirit. Team player. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the stall, pressed my forehead against the cool metal door, and breathed through the rage and humiliation burning in my chest. 6 years. I'd given this company 6 years. I'd worked through holidays while Martin golfed with clients. I'd fixed disasters while others took credit. I'd mentored new hires, including Ivy, with patience and thoroughness. And they'd thrown me a party to celebrate giving someone else the job I'd earned. I washed my hands, checked my reflection, and walked back to the celebration with a calm smile. Nobody needed to know what I was feeling. Not yet, because I'd learned something important in 6 years. Emotions are weakness in corporate environments. But strategy is power. My journey at Brennan Analytics had started with hope. Fresh out of business school, drowning in student debt, I'd been thrilled to land a role with a respected consulting firm. The work was challenging, the clients impressive, the potential for growth real. I'd started as a junior analyst, worked my way to senior analyst within 18 months, then project manager, then strategy lead. Each promotion came with promises of more. Just prove yourself a bit more, Martin would say. Show us you're ready for leadership. So I showed them. I took on the difficult clients nobody wanted, worked weekends building presentations, came in early to prepare Martin for meetings, mentored new hires so thoroughly that they'd outperform peers within months. I'd sacrificed relationships. My last boyfriend left because I worked too much. My family stopped inviting me to gatherings because I always canceled. My friends from business school had all climbed higher, faster at other companies. But I'd stayed at Brennan. Out of loyalty. Out of belief that hard work would be recognized. Out of trust that Martin meant it when he said, "Your promotion is coming, Mira. Just a little longer." 3 months ago, he pulled me aside after a major client win. "The senior director role will be yours. We're just finalizing budgets. Stay patient." I believed him. Stayed patient. Kept working myself to exhaustion. And they'd given it to Ivy. The party continued for another hour. I stayed because leaving would have revealed too much. Martin gave a speech about fresh perspectives and the future of the company. About how Ivy represented the kind of innovative thinking we need. "Some people are great at maintaining systems," he said, glancing at me. "But leadership requires vision, energy, the ability to challenge the status quo." I felt every word like a knife. He was describing me as a maintenance worker, as someone too stuck in patterns to lead. Ivy gave a speech about being grateful for the opportunity, about learning from the amazing team. She actually thanked me specifically for my mentorship, Mira taught me so much about our processes and client relationships, she said sincerely. I wouldn't be here without her guidance. The irony was suffocating. After the party, Martin cornered me in the hallway. You handled that well. I was worried you'd be difficult about this. Why would I be difficult? Well, you've been here longer. Some people get territorial. But you've always been a team player, Mira. That's why we value you. He walked away before I could respond. Probably thought that was a compliment. Probably believed I'd keep being the reliable workhorse who never complained while others got rewarded. He was wrong. But he wouldn't know that until it was too late. I went home that night and opened my laptop. Typed out a resignation letter that was professional and brief. No emotion. No accusations. Just, effective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Brennan Analytics. Thank you for the opportunities provided during my tenure. I addressed it to HR and Martin. Set it to send at 5 a.m. Monday morning. Early enough that it would be waiting when they checked email, but late enough that I could sleep on the decision. Then I poured myself wine and sat in the dark, thinking about everything I was giving up. The salary wasn't spectacular, but it was stable. The clients knew me. The projects were interesting. I had expertise in systems nobody else understood. Walking away meant starting over. Meant uncertainty. Meant admitting that loyalty had gotten me nowhere. But staying meant accepting this. Meant watching Ivy, sweet, inexperienced Ivy, lead projects I should be leading. Meant more years of being the valuable team player who was too useful to promote. At 4:55 a.m., I woke up and stared at my laptop. The scheduled email sat waiting. I could cancel it. Could go to work Monday and pretend nothing had changed. Could keep being reliable, patient, loyal Mira. Instead, I watched the clock tick to 5 a.m. and the email vanish from my drafts. Sent. Irreversible. I smiled, then went back to sleep. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at my usual time. 7:45, 15 minutes before anyone else. Made coffee. Settled at my desk. Opened my computer and started working on the client report due that afternoon. My resignation sat unread in Martin's inbox. I knew he never checked email before 9. I had time. Colleagues trickled in. Said good morning. Commented on the party Friday. Nobody knew. Nobody suspected. I was just Mira, doing what Mira always did, working efficiently, keeping systems running. At 9:17, my phone rang. Martin's extension. Mira, can you come to my office? Of course. His office door was closed. I knocked and entered to find him staring at his computer screen with an expression somewhere between confusion and anger. What is this? He turned the monitor toward me, showing my resignation email. My resignation. I can see that. Why? I think it's time for me to pursue other opportunities. This is about Friday, isn't it? You're upset about the promotion. I'm not upset. I'm making a professional decision. Mira, don't be dramatic. You're valuable here. We need you. Ivy needs you. She can't handle everything alone. Then perhaps you should have considered that before promoting someone with 5 weeks of experience into a senior leadership role. His face reddened. This is unprofessional. You can't just quit with no notice. My employment contract doesn't require notice. I'm within my rights. Martin spent 30 minutes trying to convince me to stay. Offered a raise, not as much as the promotion would have paid, but a significant increase. Offered better projects. Offered a vague promise of reconsidering the org structure. I listened politely, let him talk himself out, then shook my head. I appreciate the offers, but my decision is final. I'll complete any urgent tasks today and tomorrow. After that, I'm done. You're making a huge mistake. Do you have another job lined up? That's not relevant. Mira, be realistic. You're comfortable here. You know our systems. Starting over somewhere else will be hard. Don't let emotion ruin your career. I stood. I'm not being emotional. I'm being strategic, something I thought this company valued. As I walked out, I heard him on the phone. Probably calling HR to figure out damage control. Probably panicking because he just lost the person who actually kept projects running while he took credit. I returned to my desk and continued working. Colleagues whispered. By lunch, everyone knew I'd resigned. Some looked shocked. Some looked sympathetic. Ivy looked devastated. Mira, is this because of me? She asked, appearing at my desk with teary eyes. No, Ivy. This is because of decisions leadership made. You're doing what's best for your career. I'm doing what's best for mine. That evening, I let myself remember something I'd kept buried. 4 months ago, Brennan had pitched a major client, Quantum Financial. It was our biggest opportunity of the year. Martin had led the pitch team, but the strategy had been mine. I'd spent 3 weeks analyzing Quantum's pain points, built a framework that addressed their exact needs, created projections that showed 30% efficiency improvements, designed presentation materials that told a compelling story. Martin presented it all, took full credit in front of the client. When Quantum chose us, Martin got a huge bonus and public praise from the CEO. My name appeared nowhere. I'd built the strategy that won a $5 million contract, and Martin told everyone he developed the approach. I'd been angry then, had considered confronting him, but the voice in my head, the one that had been trained through 6 years of corporate conditioning, said, "Don't make waves. Your turn will come. Be patient." So I'd stayed quiet, kept working, waited for recognition that never came. Now, sitting in my apartment after resigning, I pulled out the original strategy documents. Everything was in my name. Timestamped emails showing I'd developed every element. Proof that Martin's brilliant strategy had been stolen. I saved everything to a secure drive. I didn't know if I'd need it, but I'd learned something important. Always keep receipts. What Martin didn't know was that I'd been approached by a competitor months ago. Kingston Strategy Group, smaller than Brennan but growing fast, had reached out through a recruiter. "We've heard excellent things about your work," their VP had said during an exploratory call. "We're building a new division and need someone with your expertise and client relationships." They'd offered more money, better title, equity, real leadership. I declined, told them I was committed to Brennan, believed Martin when he said my promotion was coming, thought loyalty would be rewarded. Now, sitting with my resignation submitted, I pulled up the recruiter's contact information, sent a brief message. "My situation has changed. Is the offer still available?" The response came within an hour. "Absolutely. Can you meet tomorrow?" I confirmed. Then I researched Kingston thoroughly, read their annual reports, studied their client list, analyzed their market position. They weren't just smaller than Brennan. They were leaner, more innovative, growing faster, and they were targeting exactly the clients Brennan had taken for granted, including Quantum Financial. By midnight, I'd built a presentation outlining what I could bring to Kingston. Not just my skills, not just my experience, but the clients I could bring with me, the insights I had into Brennan's weaknesses, the opportunities one saw in the market. I wasn't just changing jobs. I was repositioning myself as a competitive threat. The meeting with Kingston was different than any interview I'd had before. Instead of selling myself, I walked in with leverage. They wanted me. They'd been trying to poach me for months. Now I was available and they knew it. "We're prepared to offer you Executive Director of Strategy," their CEO, Patricia Zhou, said. "Direct reports, client portfolio, equity package, everything we discussed before, plus a signing bonus." "I want autonomy," I countered. "I want to build my own team. I want decision-making authority on client strategy. And I want it in writing that my work is credited properly." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Bad experience at Brennan? Let's just say I've learned what I don't want in a workplace." "Done. When can you start?" 2 weeks. I'd give Brennan 1 more week to realize what they were losing. Then I'd be gone. We shook hands. The contract arrived that afternoon. I signed it immediately. When I walked out of Kingston's office, my phone buzzed. "Text from Martin. Please reconsider. We can work something out." I deleted it without responding. Then I called Brennan's HR to confirm my last day. Professional. Calm. Final. That night, I started planning phase 2. Because leaving wasn't enough. They needed to understand exactly what they'd lost. And I knew precisely how to make them see it. My final week at Brennan was strange. I'd become a ghost, present but disconnected. I documented everything I knew, created transition files, and prepared handoff notes. Perfectly professional, utterly detached. Colleagues who'd ignored me for years suddenly wanted to have coffee, asked about my plans, pretended they'd always valued me. I smiled politely and kept my answers vague. Ivy struggled visibly. Projects I'd managed looked simple from the outside, but required institutional knowledge she didn't have. Client relationships I'd nurtured for years couldn't be transferred in a week. Systems I'd built weren't documented because nobody had ever asked me to document them. Mira, can we talk? Ivy caught me in the break room on Wednesday. Of course. I'm overwhelmed. There's so much I don't know. Martin keeps asking me questions I can't answer. I don't understand half the systems you built. You'll figure it out. You have fresh perspective and innovative energy. That's what leadership requires. Her face fell. She'd heard those words at the party. Realized now they were hollow. I didn't know you were promised this role. Martin never told me. If I'd known. It doesn't matter now. You earned your opportunity. I'm earning mine somewhere else. As I walked away, I felt something unexpected. Not anger at Ivy. Pity. She'd been set up to fail. Martin had promoted her knowing she wasn't ready, and now she'd take the blame when everything fell apart. The Quantum financial contract started showing cracks 2 weeks after I left. The project timeline I'd built was aggressive but achievable if you understood the dependencies. Martin didn't. Ivy couldn't. I heard about it through my network. A former colleague texted. Total chaos here. Client meeting went badly. Martin forgot half the deliverables you'd outlined. Another message. Ivy asked if you'd consult. Martin said no. I didn't respond. Just watched from a distance as the situation deteriorated. Quantum's CEO called Martin demanding explanations. Martin scrambled to recreate work I'd done months ago. Ivy tried to fill gaps, but didn't have the relationships with Quantum's team that I'd built through dozens of meetings and calls. The monthly status report, normally a formality, became a crisis. Quantum expressed concerns about deliverable quality, about missed deadlines, about whether Brennan could actually execute the strategy they'd been sold. Martin tried to smooth things over, promised improvements, assigned more resources, but resources weren't the problem. Understanding was the problem. And I'd been the one who understood. 3 weeks after I left, Quantum sent a formal letter expressing dissatisfaction with project progress. It wasn't cancellation. Not yet. But it was close. I learned about it because Quantum's CEO called me. At Kingston, where I now had an executive title and the authority to pitch competitive solutions. Mira, I heard you moved. Congratulations. I also heard things aren't going well with Brennan on our project. I'm sorry to hear that. Would Kingston be interested in discussing alternatives? We would be very interested. The first call was exploratory. Quantum wanted to know if Kingston could handle their scope. I assured them we could, and walked them through exactly how, using the same framework I'd built at Brennan. The second call included Quantum's leadership team. I presented a revised strategy that built on what Brennan had started but fixed the gaps. Showed them how Kingston's approach would deliver better results faster. The third call was about transition. How quickly could we take over? What would the process look like? What guarantees could we provide? Throughout all of this, I was professional. Never badmouthed Brennan. Never mentioned my history there. Just focused on delivering value to Quantum. But everyone knew. Everyone understood. The woman Brennan had overlooked was now their biggest competitive threat. I heard through my network that Martin lost his mind when he learned Quantum was talking to Kingston. That he'd called Patricia Zhou accusing her of poaching his client. That Patricia had calmly pointed out Quantum came to us, not the other way around. Ivy reportedly broke down crying during a team meeting. The pressure was destroying her. She'd gone from rising star to scapegoat in 6 weeks. I felt a twinge of guilt about Ivy. But then I remembered she'd accepted a promotion she wasn't qualified for. She'd benefited from a system that valued appearance over substance. She was learning a hard lesson, but it was one she needed to learn. Kingston closed the Quantum deal 2 months after I started. We didn't steal the client. Brennan lost them through incompetence. We simply offered a better alternative at the exact moment Quantum needed one. It was a $7 million contract, larger than what Brennan had originally won. And it came with something even more valuable, proof that Kingston could compete with established firms. Our press release was professional. Kingston Strategy Group expands partnership with Quantum Financial. We didn't mention taking it from a competitor. Didn't need to. Everyone in the industry knew. Brennan's stock price dropped 3% the day the news broke. Investors asked questions during their earnings call. Martin gave vague answers about unexpected client transitions and temporary setbacks. But it wasn't temporary. 2 weeks later, another of my former clients reached out to Kingston. Then another. They'd worked with me at Brennan, trusted my judgment, and wanted to continue that relationship. I wasn't stealing clients. I was simply being available when they came looking for someone they trusted. And they came looking because Brennan had proven it couldn't deliver without me. Martin probably realized it by then. Probably understood that team player, Mira had been the foundation his entire division was built on. Probably regretted passing me over for someone flashy but inexperienced. But understanding came too late. What Martin didn't know was that I'd maintained relationships with several junior analysts at Brennan. People I'd mentored. People who owed their careers to my guidance. People who were frustrated watching the company fall apart. One of them was Joe Park, a brilliant analyst who'd started at Brennan the same month Ivy arrived. I trained them both. But Joe had stayed in the analyst role while Ivy got promoted. The difference? Ivy was charismatic and networked well. Joe was quiet and competent. Joe reached out 3 months after I left. Mira, things are bad here. Martin is panicking. Ivy's overwhelmed. They're losing clients and can't figure out why. I'm sorry to hear that. They're trying to copy your old strategies, but they don't understand them. I've been asked to explain your frameworks. I've been avoiding it. Why? Because you built them. They pushed you out. They don't deserve to benefit from your work. Joe sent me information occasionally. Not confidential data, nothing that would violate ethics. Just insights about company direction. About client dissatisfaction. About internal chaos. Martin tried to pitch Stellar Industries using your old quantum framework. Joe told me before a major conference. He's presenting at the industry summit next week. Same approach you used. That was useful information. Because I'd also been invited to present at that summit. And I had something Martin didn't, the updated framework. The version 2.0 I'd been developing when I left. Kingston registered me as their keynote. Brennan had Martin presenting in a breakout session. Same day. Same time slot. The competition would be direct. And I had every advantage. The industry summit attracted 2,000 professionals. CFOs, strategy directors, consultants, everyone who mattered in corporate strategy. It was the kind of event where deals got made and reputations were built. Martin's breakout session was titled Innovative Frameworks for Digital Transformation. My keynote was Next Generation Strategy Beyond Traditional Consulting Models. I attended his session first. Sat in the back and watched him present my framework, the one I developed for quantum, as if it were his innovation. The audience seemed engaged. The content was solid, because I built it. But Martin stumbled on questions. Someone asked about implementation challenges. He gave a vague answer. Another person asked about metrics. He deflected. He understood the surface but not the depth. After his session ended, attendees filed into the main hall for my keynote. Martin stayed in his breakout room talking to people. Didn't realize what was coming. I took the stage with confidence I'd never felt at Brennan. Introduced myself as Kingston's executive director. Outlined the framework Martin had just presented, and then showed its limitations. Traditional consulting approaches work for stable environments, I explained. But in rapidly changing markets, you need adaptive frameworks that evolve with client needs. I presented the next iteration. Showed how it addressed gaps in the traditional approach. Demonstrated results from quantum's implementation. Gave concrete examples of how the adaptive model outperformed static frameworks. The audience was riveted. When Q&A came, people asked intelligent questions. I answered with specificity Martin couldn't match. Afterward, Martin approached me in the hallway. That was my framework. Was it? Funny, my timestamps say otherwise. He walked away without another word. The summit accelerated everything. Within 2 weeks, 3 potential clients who'd been considering Brennan reached out to Kingston instead. Our approach had impressed them. More specifically, I had impressed them. Meanwhile, Brennan's troubles multiplied. Investors demanded explanations for lost clients. Board members questioned Martin's leadership. Revenue projections were revised downward twice in 1 quarter. I heard through Joe that Martin was working 18-hour days trying to salvage things. That Ivy had been quietly demoted back to senior analyst, the promotion experiment had failed spectacularly. That morale was at an all-time low. They're talking about restructuring the entire strategy division, Joe told me. Martin might be forced out. What about you? I asked. Are you okay? I'm surviving. But Mira, I want to work with you again. Kingston is growing. Do you have openings? I smiled. Send me your resume. 3 days later, Joe submitted resignation. 2 other analysts I'd mentored followed within the week. All came to Kingston. All brought institutional knowledge, client relationships, and momentum. Brennan's strategy division was hemorrhaging talent. And it wasn't corporate espionage or unethical poaching. People simply wanted to work where their contributions were valued, where leadership meant competence, not politics, where someone like me could succeed. Ivy attempted damage control. She reached out, asked to meet for coffee. I agreed out of curiosity. We met at a neutral location. She looked exhausted, dark circles under eyes, hands shaking slightly around her coffee cup. I owe you an apology, she started. I didn't understand what I was taking from you. I was young and ambitious and didn't ask the right questions. You don't owe me anything. You accepted an opportunity. Anyone would have. But it wasn't earned. I see that now. They set me up to fail and used me to push you out. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm demoted. My reputation is damaged. Martin blames me for everything. I'm thinking about leaving. 2 weeks later, I saw Ivy at an industry panel I'd been invited to join. She'd somehow gotten onto the same panel, probably trying to rebuild her credibility. The moderator asked about challenges in strategy consulting. Ivy launched into an answer about learning from mistakes and the importance of mentorship. Then she made a mistake. She referenced my quantum framework as an example of successful strategy, claiming she'd been involved in developing it. I waited until she finished. Then I calmly clarified. Actually, that framework predated your time at Brennan by several months. I'm glad it worked well, but accurate attribution matters in our field. The room went silent. Ivy's face turned bright red. The moderator quickly moved to the next question. After the panel, Ivy approached me, furious. You humiliated me. I corrected misinformation. If you're going to rebuild your career, do it honestly. She stormed off. I never saw her at another industry event. Kingston's growth attracted attention. Business publications started covering our success story. How Kingston Strategy Group is disrupting traditional consulting. The rise of agile strategy, Kingston's innovative approach. Several articles mentioned me by name, quoted my keynotes, highlighted my role in Kingston's expansion. Patricia, Joe made sure I received credit, something that had never happened at Brennan. One publication ran a feature, From Overlooked to Executive, Mira Desai's Journey. The article outlined my career trajectory, mentioned my time at Brennan without dwelling on it, focused on my success at Kingston and the impact I'd made. The comment section filled with stories from other professionals, especially women who'd experienced similar situations, who'd been passed over, who'd seen less qualified people promoted above them, who'd stayed too long out of loyalty that wasn't reciprocated. Mira Desai is proof that leaving can be the best career move, one commenter wrote. Another, companies need to realize that their reliable employees are often their most valuable. Treat them accordingly, or lose them to competitors. The article went viral within the strategy consulting community. My LinkedIn connections quadrupled. Speaking invitations poured in. Clients specifically requested me for their projects. I'd become exactly what Brennan had refused to acknowledge, a recognized leader in my field. A major business podcast invited me on. Building Your Worth, Conversations with Corporate Leaders. The host, Taylor Mills, was known for insightful, sometimes hard-hitting interviews. Let's talk about leaving Brennan, Taylor said 15 minutes in. That's been covered in articles, but I want to hear it from you. What made you walk away? I realized loyalty without respect is exploitation. I'd spent 6 years proving myself, and it was never enough. So I chose to prove myself somewhere that would actually see it. Do you regret not staying and fighting for the promotion? No. Fighting would have meant more years waiting for recognition that wasn't coming. Leaving meant immediately being valued. That's not giving up. That's strategic career management. Some might say you're bitter about how things ended. I'm not bitter. I'm grateful. Brennan taught me what I won't accept in a workplace. Kingston taught me what I deserve. Both lessons were valuable. What would you say to other professionals in similar situations? Document your work. Know your worth. Don't wait for permission to be valuable. And remember, companies don't owe you loyalty, but you don't owe them yours either. The episode became the podcast's most downloaded. Clips circulated on social media. Know your worth became a rallying cry in professional development circles. And somewhere, Martin was listening, realizing that the quiet employee he dismissed had become a voice people respected. 4 months after I left, Martin requested a meeting. The email was carefully worded, professional but clearly desperate. Mira, I'd like to discuss potential opportunities for collaboration between our firms. Would you be available for coffee? I almost deleted it, but Patricia convinced me to take the meeting. Hear what he has to say. You're in control now. Make him understand that. We met at the same coffee shop where I'd met Ivy months earlier. Martin arrived looking diminished. Weight loss, graying hair, tired eyes. The confident executive who dismissed me had been replaced by someone struggling. Thank you for meeting me, he said. You said you wanted to discuss collaboration. Yes. Kingston has been very successful. You've been very successful. I want to congratulate you on that. Thank you. Brennan is going through changes. We're restructuring, refocusing. And I've been thinking your expertise, your client relationships. Maybe there's a way we could work together again. You want me to come back? Not exactly. Well, yes, but differently. We bring you in as Senior Vice President of Strategy. Your own division. Full autonomy. Significant salary increase. Equity. Everything you should have had before. I sipped my coffee, letting him sweat. Martin, why would I do that? Because you know Brennan. You built systems there. You could come back as a leader and help us recover. Help you recover from losing me in the first place. His face reddened. I made mistakes. I see that now. But we can fix this. We can. No. Martin tried for another 20 minutes. Talked about legacy. About what we'd built together at Brennan. About how my return would be celebrated. How we could do things differently. I let him finish. Then I leaned forward. Martin, you had 6 years to value me. You chose not to. You had dozens of opportunities to promote me. You gave it to someone else. You built your reputation on my work and never gave me credit. So no, I won't come back to clean up the mess you created. Mira, please. I'm not angry. I'm just done. Kingston values me. Clients trust me. I have equity in a growing company. I have a reputation I built myself. Why would I give that up to rescue someone who pushed me out? The salary offer is substantial. Money isn't everything. Respect matters. Credit matters. Opportunity matters. You taught me that by taking all 3 away. I stood to leave. He remained seated, defeated. For what it's worth, I added, you should have promoted me. Not because I deserved it after 6 years, but because I was the best person for the job. Ivy was never qualified. You knew that. You just didn't want to promote someone who wouldn't worship you. I left him sitting alone with his empty coffee cup and failed attempt at manipulation. Outside, I texted Patricia, meeting done. I declined. Moving forward. Her response came immediately. Good. We have 3 new client leads. Need you on them. I smiled and headed back to the office where I was actually wanted. 2 weeks after my meeting with Martin, Ivy resigned from Brennan. Posted on LinkedIn about exciting new opportunities and personal growth journeys. Everyone in the industry knew what that meant. She'd been forced out. A few days later, I got an unexpected message. From Joe. Mira, I wanted you to know first. I'm being promoted to Director of Analytics at Kingston. Patricia told me it's because you recommended me. Thank you for believing in me when I was just another overlooked analyst at Brennan. I'd fought for Joe's promotion. Told Patricia that Joe represented exactly the kind of talent other companies dismissed. Quiet, competent, loyal people who did excellent work without seeking spotlight. Joe reminds me of myself 5 years ago, I'd said. Brilliant but underestimated. Don't make the same mistake Brennan made with me. Patricia had agreed. Joe's promotion became official the same week Ivy resigned. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. The analyst Brennan had ignored was now leading a department at their fastest-growing competitor. Joe's first project? Leading strategy for a client Brennan had lost 3 months earlier. Joe knew their business inside and out, having worked on their account as an analyst. Now, Joe was running the relationship at a senior level. The circle was complete. Brennan had lost the talent they'd undervalued. Kingston had gained the people who actually drove results. And everyone could see which approach worked better. The board removed Martin 6 months after I left. The announcement was corporate speak. Pursuing new opportunities, mutual decision, grateful for his contributions. But industry insiders knew he'd been forced out after losing too many clients and too much talent. Brennan's strategy division was restructured entirely. Several directors were let go. The remaining staff were merged with other departments. The once prominent division that Martin had led became a shadow of what it had been. But the most interesting development came from an unexpected source. One of Kingston's angel investors, a woman named Adriana Kim who owned significant stakes in several consulting firms, quietly bought a majority position in Brennan. "I believe in restructuring failing companies," she told Patricia during a strategy meeting I attended. "Brennan has good bones. They just need leadership that values competence over politics." Adriana brought in new executives, implemented culture changes, fired managers who'd enabled Martin's toxic environment. And she specifically requested that I consult on the restructure, helping Brennan rebuild using the principles they should have followed all along. I declined the consulting role, suggested Joe instead. Joe knows that company better than I do now. And Joe represents what Brennan needs, people they underestimated who can teach them better. Adriana agreed. Joe became a highly paid consultant helping fix the company that had once ignored them. The irony was perfect. Last week, I had a meeting near my old office. Afterward, I walked past the building where I'd spent 6 years sacrificing weekends, relationships and dreams, believing hard work would be rewarded. A for-lease sign hung in the window. Brennan had moved to a smaller location across town as part of their restructuring. The building that once housed their headquarters, the place where they'd thrown that champagne party for someone else's promotion, now sat empty. I stopped and looked up at the windows. Remember the conference room where Martin had humiliated me? The desk where I'd worked late so many nights? The bathroom stall where I'd cried after being passed over? That version of me felt like a different person. Someone who believed loyalty was enough. Who thought patience would be rewarded. Who'd waited for permission to be valuable. I'd learned better. Learned that respect has to be demanded, not earned through endless proving. Learned that sometimes leaving is the bravest choice. Learn that companies will take everything you give and ask for more, unless you set boundaries. My phone buzzed. "Patricia, client meeting in 20. Need your input on the strategy." I smiled, turned away from the empty building, and walked toward Kingston's headquarters 3 blocks away. Toward the office where my name was on the directory, where clients requested me, specifically, where my work was credited properly, where I was exactly what Brennan had refused to see, a leader worth following. The promotion party they threw for someone else had been the beginning of their end and my beginning. They'd celebrated giving away what they couldn't afford to lose. And I'd smiled, stayed quiet, and built something better than they could have ever imagined.